Hello everyone, welcome to this SUPboarder video where I'm going to be reviewing the newest inflatable surfing SUP to hit the market, the Honu Bondi. This board has just been released, and over the past month or so we've managed to get a couple small surf sessions on to get our thoughts and impressions to bring you the full review of this new Bondi board. And woo, what a board it is. If you're interested in getting a surfing inflatable SUP this year, definitely this video is well worth checking out. I'm going to give you what it was like on the water, obviously the pros, the cons, and highlight who this board will best suit. By the end of this video, hopefully you have a good idea if this new Honu Bondi is the board for you. As always guys, thanks for watching this video. Remember, if you like more SUP and foil content, check out the full SUPboarder website, and please subscribe to this YouTube channel. There's videos like this that go on there every week. So cracking into this review, so this board we have heard a lot about. We've heard a lot about from the main designer, Mark Travers. About a year and a half ago, he said that there was something coming from him that he really wanted to get to us, but obviously we had to wait for it. So this is the 88 by 32 by 4 inches thick. You can also get this board in a 9.5 by 32.5. The volume of this board is 168 litres and it weighs 8.4 kilograms. It has a maximum PSI pressure of 22 PSI and it retails at £845, 990 euros or $890. For that price, you just get the board, the fins, the leash and the bag. You do not get a paddle or a pump like you do with many other packages. Keeping the paddle and pump out of this, definitely this type of package, the more specialist package, is a really great move because a lot of us have already got inflatable paddle boards and we don't need maybe a cheap paddle that we're not going to use or a pump either. Really keeping the package more minimal is better at keeping the price down, and it's better for our garage space as well. Now there's a lot going on this board and a lot to talk about with this board. So the way I'm going to lay this video out is I'm going to talk about the materials, the construction of the board, then I'm going to go over the deflection test, then I'm going to go over the outline shape, what's on the board, the fin fittings, all that sort of stuff. Then I'm going to move on to what it's like on the water, and then finishing off with the cons, the pros, and who should be buying this board. Now looking at the materials and the construction process that Honu have put on this board. So the drop stitch, this is 4-inch thick drop stitch. This is the X woven drop stitch. They've had this in the past and it's double layered. So that means you get your internal core of drop stitch, then you've got your fabric, PVC. That's your double layer board. Now Honu have brought out a new rail construction process on their board. Now they've got welded rails. Now in the past they have had welded rails, but they also have a carbon band on top of those welded rails as well. You can see where this carbon technology is placed on the outside of the board, and that's obviously going to give the board a lot more stiffness because it's going to stop the board from bending. Also, it's going to make the board very hard wearing on the rails as well. Another thing that they've done with that carbon is they've taken that same carbon and they've placed it on the stringer as well. So the stringer is going down the top of the board and it's going underneath the board. Now that stringer is going to give that board a lot more stiffness. It's also going to help the rockline shape. Now this 50mm 3K carbon band that they've got going down the rail of the board and on the top and bottom of the board does make a massive difference to the deflection. So let's jump straight into that now. So our deflection test is where we put all of our inflatable paddle boards on a gap of 1.5 meters, and then we put a weight of 75 kilograms on the top of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends and deflects. Now this is a 4-inch thick board. That is going to make it deflect more than a board that is, let's say, 6 inches. Some of the stiffest boards we've ever tested, and I think we're currently at about 7, maybe 6 millimeters in deflection, but that would have been a board that was pumped right up to 22 psi and definitely be more in that 6-inch thick category. So 4 inches thick, pumped to 22 psi. Can you guess? I asked Will earlier, he was like 14, which is still a fairly stiff deflection, but no, 10 millimeters. 10 millimeters. Now that isn't very much for a board to move that's 4 inches thick. So incredibly stiff. So whatever Honu have put onto and in this board, it's proven in that deflection. Still, the board doesn't weigh too much. That's the other compromise. You can have a really stiff board, but it can end up weighing a lot more. This board is sitting around 8.4 kilograms, which isn't actually that bad. Yes, there are lighter inflatable surfing SUPs in the market, but they're a lot more bendy than this. So stiffness, deflection, big thumbs up straight away. Now let's look at the outline shape and some of the features that are on the board. So looking at the outline shape, you'll see it has a relatively pulled in tail to a sort of round pin tail and a nice wide sort of width going up the board, being 32 wide up towards the shoulders and then pulled in towards the nose. So offers you a good amount of width throughout most of the board, but you still have that more pulled in tail, which we'll speak about on the performance in the waves in a minute. Other features this board has is a relatively large deck pad which goes quite far forward, and they've put the pressure valve in the mid to front section of the board. Now this is very different from other places on the boards. Usually they're at the far front or at the back. The advantage to having them not at the back is you can have the fin boxes, the leashing plug, everything further back on the board, and it gives you a much cleaner looking at the back of the board. When it comes to rolling this board up, yes, you are having to roll out the air towards the front and then do a little bit up towards the nose, but it doesn't seem to be a problem. And if you're rolling it up from the back, you can protect your fin boxes as you roll it as well. The EVA deck pad is very comfy and very nicely finished. You've got these different sort of zoned areas, which do sort of help if you're getting into SUP surfing, starting to understand where to place your feet and balance. Having the white line down the middle is quite nice as well, clearly marking the center line. Also part of the EVA, you have a really thick and big raised kick pad at the back here, something you can wedge your foot against. You can't miss it. It's really nice and chunky. Quite a slim down but comfortable central carry handle, leashing point at the back of the board. Looking at the bottom of the board, you can see the stringer going down the bottom of the board, and then moving towards the back, you then have this fin setup, which is very different from other boards. You have two completely unique fin boxes by Honu. They are Futures fin boxes on the side, but they are sort of teardrop shaped to help the water flow. Now, just so you know, putting a hard composite fin on a inflatable paddleboard is quite hard because you're going to have to make a really solid connection between the board and the fin, and that is what they've worked on with this fin box. Moving to the back and the center fin, you have a foldable US fin box, so you still can roll this board nice and tight. The two types of fins it comes with, the red sort of twin fin, keel fins on the side there, they're much bigger than a lot of fins you'll find on the market. And then your central fin, your US box fin, is an 8-inch fin as well. These fins are all glass fiber, G10, really stiff fins. And this setup of fins is very different from any other inflatable iSUP or even composite SUP on the market today. I'll speak a bit about more of those in a minute. Keeping a look at the back of the board underneath, you'll see that there's a hard rail edge going around the back. That's to help the water flow release off the tail quickly, giving you a much more drivey, faster board to ride in the waves as well. We've used these sort of tail systems on other boards and they do work really well, but the way this one is finished off is really quite nice. Looking at the rocker line of the board, there is a nice flat section in the mid part of the board. You've got a nice amount of nose kick and you've got a good amount of tail kick. Now, rocker is Really needed in an inflatable surfing SUP. If you've heard me talk in other reviews or other tests where I've been looking at inflatable surfing SUPs, I'm always going on about rocker. So this has flat section in the middle, nose rocker, tail rocker. Not a huge amount, but enough to really help in the surf. Quickly, before I eagerly get on to what it's like on the water, looking at the leash in the bag, you get a nice, quite a smart leash, 9 foot, all branded up. Worked well. I definitely use it at SUP surfing and my other sort of surfing as well. So a nice leash. The bag you get is a nice, comfortable bag that easily gets the board in, padded shoulder straps, wheel bag, nicely made. So no complaints with the bag. Exactly what I would expect from a top-end brand like this. So moving on to what it's like on the water, the exciting stuff. Now I will try and keep my cool with this because this board does work very well. Okay, it does work very well. Starting off with the flat water, paddling out, what it's like, stability, paddling over waves. So the first thing you will notice on standing on this board is it has a good amount of stability because it is 32 wide. And really has a good amount of stability because the board is so stiff at 10 millimeters. Now, usually when you're using an inflatable, it's got a little bit of a bend, a little bit of a wobble. When you paddle out over waves, that wobble will accentuate and feel even worse, and that's when it will feel even more unstable. So it's 4 inches thick, it's 10 millimeters deflection. I can't believe it's 10 mil. 10 millimeters in deflection. So every time you pop out over a wave and you come back down over the back of the wave and you'd have that little wobble, it's like direct, instant feel with the water. If you need to punch through a little bit of a wave because it's only 4 inches thick, it doesn't have too much nose thickness up there, pops through that wave nicely. Small amount of nose rocker there helps pop you over those waves. I don't think at any point did me or Lucy fall off when we were paddling out back, and that's high praise because inflatable SUPs do require quite a bit of a technique when you're paddling out over waves. So when you're out back, wait for waves. Again, stability's good. Obviously this board's 8'8" long, so it can turn quite easily, pivot to catch a wave quite nicely. You've still got a good amount of width near the back of the board when you're doing your step back turns, so if you want to turn and catch the wave quickly, that's nice. Also then, when you go to paddle and catch the wave, the first thing you're going to feel is how, if you're set up with your 2+1 fin setup, so your 3 fins, how straight it paddles. So for a lot of you beginners who are getting into SUP surfing, that's what you want. You want to see the wave, you want to turn, you want to paddle, you want to catch it. You don't want to be drifting off an angle, you just want to paddle straight. Also, the thing we loved, and we've said it in so many videos in the past and other brands, something says, I think Honu have been watching those videos, the deck pad is really nicely far forward. So you can get your front foot just below the valve and you can put the power on and you can catch any bump really with a good paddle technique. So many inflatable SUPs, the deck pad ends just in front of your normal sort of paddling stance, and you have to wax or be careful not to slip on the front of the board. It's just so simple, but it makes such a massive difference. So catching the waves is pretty easy. It's not the fastest to catch waves because it's not like 28 or 27 wide. It's definitely not slow, but it's about what I expect for a board at 32 wide. As soon as you catch that wave, it seems to get a fair amount of glide early on, so you can stop paddling, you can ride the wave even if it's a little bump. As soon as you're ready to initiate that bottom turn, the board is ready for you. Move your weight back on the board, and as soon as you lay that rail, the rail works, the fins work, everything's there to give you grip and hold. It does bottom turn very nicely. It seems very direct and quite quick to initiate that turn. Some other boards are a bit laggy. This one is very direct. I did find when I was generally surfing, this kick pad was in a really good place. So for my bottom turns, for my light top turns, my foot was actually on this kick pad or exactly where it needed to be. I do think it could possibly go back a little bit further for when you're doing more dramatic turns, but that's probably more of a personal thing for me. So maybe 2 inches further back, I would say, for the more extreme turns, but for most of the time in my general riding and carving around, actually the kick pad was in about the right position, which I didn't think it was when I first unpacked the board in the first look video. The board definitely has two sort of settings, I would say. In fact, it's got more than that. The board, I'm going to say, has got 4 settings depending on what fin setup you ride. So if you first ride it with the 2+1, so that's all of the fins, the board is a little bit draggy. That's to be expected because you've got loads more fins, and it makes the board feel very locked in and easy to ride, as in to get onto rail, and it's not going to skip out or slide out, so very, very grippy. But if you take the back fin away and ride it with the two twins fins, it makes the board faster and it makes the board more lively and easier to turn from rail to rail. A much more exciting experience. So that's what I preferred riding with. We used it with both all fins and the two twin fins, and there is a big difference. This is the only SUP I've ever tested, inflatable surfing SUP. I've given you the ability to almost start off as a beginner, buy this board, paddle this board as a beginner with that 2+1 fin setup, and then as you progress, get rid of that center fin and then move to a more advanced sort of riding style. Brilliant idea. So simple, massive difference for everybody out there. The other two settings are whatever types of waves you're riding. If it's quite a slack wave, the board's more of a carvy, slower, easier going ride. But if the wave gets steeper and faster, the board is ready for that. And that's definitely to do with these side fins right on the edge of the rails here. So the faster the wave is, obviously naturally the faster the board's going to feel, but really the board feels way more alive in that faster swell. So if you get on a steeper swell, even if it's smaller, and you can work that board, you can pump that board, you can initiate that rail a lot more, you can drive down the waves. So it is a board that is happy in faster waves and it's happy in the slacker waves. Now when it comes to turns, I feel that I'm going to play around with the fins even more. I might go back to a 2+1 fin setup, but I might drop the side fins even smaller, and I might put a smaller back center fin on. Now this is really sort of tuning equipment here, but I think the board could be even more reactive for a higher level rider if they play around with those fins, bringing it more like a thruster setup, which is 3 fins, or a 2+1 setup, but being smaller area on all of the fins. And I think that will make it way more pivoty, because when you ride it as a twin fin, it does have a little feel of being on railway tracks. That's what twin fins are like. So they're a little bit like up and down, carve, up and down. It's happy, but if you really want to throw it hard and you want to do a tighter turn, that's when the twin fins are a bit more of a limitation. So for your advanced surfer, if you're looking for this, you can tune it. If all of that has gone straight over your head, don't worry, super easy, fun board to use. Stick your 3 fins in it, move on to your twin fins. Rock line and board shape underneath, so it's fast and easy to catch the waves. There is still points where you will nosedive off the tops, off of floaters. That's to be expected with inflatable surfing SUPs. I don't actually think there needs to be more rocker on this. That's just an observation that is always an observation when it comes to surfing iSUPs. Moving on to pros and cons. Starting off at the cons, negatives, things you need to be aware of. Unfortunately, no, there isn't actually that many. Kick pad, maybe back a tiny bit. Yeah. Width of the board, it's quite wide for lighter riders. Lucy at 65 kilos, she really loved this board. But she was like, oh, if it was 28, it would be amazing for the lighter paddlers. It's more of an observation, that, isn't it? So maybe if you're 60 kilos and down, you might find there's just too much width there. But oh, I don't know, the board's so nice apart from that. Moving on to the pros though. Well, where should we start? Deck pad, fantastic. Fin setup, unique. Fin positioning is really good. Having the ability to change them all and put standard surfing fins in there. These aren't any special box. These are just futures and a US box. Buy some other ones, play around with it. Unbelievably stiff, rocker line is perfect, tail outline shape nice, works well. It's an outstanding quality board, and actually the price point is pretty good as well because you haven't got to buy it with all the other package stuff. You get a 4-year warranty on this. And another pro, which Lucy highlighted, it doesn't catch on the shoulders. Now what she means by that is a lot of the times, it can happen with all surfing SUPs, but it does happen with inflatable surfing SUPs a lot. Because the rail is relatively thick here and it's the sort of same shape throughout the whole of the board, when you go to do a bottom turn, if the water catches the front of the rail, it can sort of drag the board down, slow the board down, and ends up sort of throwing you over the front. It's definitely all to do with the shoulder section. Now, whether it's to do with tail rocker line shape or the rocker line shape at the nose, or combination of everything, and the stiffness of the board as well, that will make a difference as you're leaning back. It doesn't catch at the rail, so it gives you that much more of a feeling of a board like you're using a composite surfing board, not so much of an inflatable surfing SUP. Talking about who's it best for, I'm going to talk about the 8.8 and the 9.5 actually. If you're new to SUP surfing, so let's say you've done flat water supping, but you haven't done inflatable SUP surfing, I think you could be 80 kg and jump on this board and be a complete newbie and down. If you're progressing and you're a better rider, this board, because it's so stiff, you're still going to be able to jump on it at 115 kilos and ride this board. The volume is there, the stiffness is there, the performance is there. So a large range of uses. If you're a traveling SUP surfer, a no-brainer, an absolute no-brainer. If you want more of a cruisy longboard style that will still turn, go for the longer 9.5. It's just going to draw out the turns a little bit more and you're going to have more nose weight, which is going to stop that board from pivoting faster. I think swell size is very happy in small swell, very happy in waist high, and I think it'll be way happier in swell well overhead as well. Unfortunately, we did not get the chance to use it in bigger surf, but I do think with the fin setup and the rail shape, it will still give a lot of drive and grip in bigger surf as well. You probably guessed it, I did really like this board and it does surf very, very well. I hope you found this review interesting and informative. There are some great inflatable surfing SUPs on the market now, and that's so nice because we can travel places with our SUPs in a bag, not worry about transport, damaging them. And this is definitely one of the boards that a lot of you need to have on your list. Whether you're a beginner or an intermediate or an advanced rider, you will enjoy riding this board. My name is Ruben, thank you for watching. Any comments, have you used this board? Love to know your thoughts on that. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And of course, check out the extra content on SUPboarder Pro. Thanks very much, and we'll see you on another video soon.